You're watching Hustle and Heart TV, a video podcast show that spotlights expert advice from top money earners, successful entrepreneurs, superstar network marketers, and leading authorities in business and marketing. I'm Darieth Chisholm. I'm inviting you into my home, and I'm bridging my own personal success as an entrepreneur, MLMer, news anchor, and now video podcast show host to help you leverage more tools and resources, make more money, and generate more ways to take action, become a rock star, and love your journey. Ryan Lammie, so excited to have you on Hustle and Heart TV. We've got so much to cover today, but I really want to start with this idea of you being, in my mind, this artist who is really a champion for other artists here in the city of Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm. Well, so, I started out as an artist, and I'm still an artist, but basically, when I went to school in Brooklyn, New York, when I came back from Pittsburgh, one of the biggest things that was lacking in the city was an infrastructure that supported artists to actually be here and to have a studio environment. And so one of my first real missions was to actually just find myself a space in Pittsburgh where I could continue to make my work since coming back from New York. And when I came back, it was really just a whole year of networking and getting to know a lot of different individuals. And from one of those connections, I was able to find a space, and that space happened to be Radiant Hall in Lawrenceville, which over the last 2.5 years has become really a center for a lot of artists to take up space, to study their practice. And we've been able to organically create a model that not only serves the artist, but also is there to kind of create a sustainable model for them to create work, and that we can kind of build on and collectively create to ultimately provide these spaces for artists in the long term.
It's a really interesting concept. It's this wonderful dynamics of collaboration, creativity, and collective community, so to speak. And for artists who are looking for an opportunity to not only have the physical space to work in, but the creative energy in that place, I would think it's ideal. But why not work in your basement? I mean, as an artist, to have to pay the extra money to be around the other artists, is that just that inviting for them? And do you find that artists are on a waiting list to get in because of that?
There is a high demand for the space at this point, but to go back to your question about why would artists choose to be in a building around other artists rather than working out of their home, I think there's been a pretty large shift in how artists, how we kind of work together. And there's always been this notion that artists need to be by themselves, or they need to be isolated to really be able to focus on what they're working on. I think there's a newer generation in Pittsburgh starting to see this influx of younger artists that they really see the benefit of being around other artists, and they can quickly learn new things that they wouldn't be able to learn if they were in their own homes working out of a smaller studio. And so the number of connections, the number of different practices that artists are pursuing, the different skills that everybody knows and are able to bring to the table, rather than having a coffee date or meeting with somebody to ask them questions about a problem that you're having in studio. They're right next to you, and you can easily ask them, well, how do I go about doing this? Or why is this working for you and it's not working for me? And I think that's one of the real positive reasons why artists want to be in a collective studio, is because they have that access to a lot of different resources.
This came out of a need for you to not only have that collective energy as you're working with other artists, but having spent time in New York, graduated from school, and then realized you weren't making it. It was challenging for you. How so?
It basically comes down to, can you afford to have a studio and a living space? In New York, you could easily spend about $850 a month on what is essentially a closet. And in Pittsburgh, what we've been able to do, and it's nothing that Radiant Hall's created, but the affordability and the option to basically take up a residence with 3 or 4 other artists in a Victorian house, and then also have a studio somewhere else. That's been the typical model, is that artists naturally kind of collectively come together and they try to find ways of supporting themselves. And so going from New York to Pittsburgh, I can afford a studio space, a living space, and not work 5 jobs for that same level of support, where in New York I'd be paying $850 for basically a closet, and here I can afford everything that I need to support my practice. And also what I've found in my personal experience is not only can I afford to provide those things for myself, but while I'm in the process of providing those things for myself, I can also do it for 20, 30, 40 other artists.
Now, Radiant Hall resides in the Lawrenceville area of Pittsburgh, and clearly there's been this need now to grow it and move into other neighborhoods and duplicate this same success that you've been having at Radiant Hall. And how is that coming for you? And what's the mindset behind it? I mean, is this something that other cities are doing? Are you trending this? I mean, at 26 years old, you're quite busy pulling these pieces together. But the mindset around just now putting in those additional locations throughout the city of Pittsburgh.
So the reason why we're expanding is it's both, there's a need for it. We get a request for studio space every other day at this point. But also being a part of the New York art scene for about 5 years, I was on the tail end of a cycle of art activity that I think started in the Lower East Side, and then moved to the Chelsea district, and then moved to the Williamsburg area, and then has ultimately blossomed into most of Brooklyn. And you kind of see this hot spot effect, where as soon as the artists move in, you end up seeing developers and other interested people wanting to move into the area. And so that created this chain of development behind it. One of the things that we want to prevent in Pittsburgh is that idea that just because the artists are moving in doesn't mean it's going to be outpriced within 5 to 10 years. And so by creating multiple locations in different neighborhoods, we're trying to really be sensitive to the effects that artists play in a community that's changing. And so by creating this model where we're hoping to have 5 to 6 studio buildings surrounding the Pittsburgh area, we can kind of create options for artists and where they want to actually live and set up, and where they want to invest their lives. And so we're trying to create those options while also creating a healthier ecosystem that surrounds Pittsburgh, rather than focusing on one area at a time. And so when you have all of these studio buildings, you naturally find that there should be a core or some kind of central location where the neighborhoods and the communities that you're creating in these other smaller pockets have an opportunity to kind of come together and celebrate what's been happening. And so where we're at now is the Energy Innovation Center, and essentially we're working on a space that will become that central focus for these studio buildings. But that space will have an exhibition space. It'll be a co-working space for small arts organizations, so that they have an instant connection to the artists that are working in these buildings, as well as other arts organizations around the city. And that one of the things that takes up the most amount of my time is keeping up with these connections. And I play a lot of different roles on a few different arts organizations boards around the Pittsburgh area, and that just, it helps me to understand the larger picture and where things are changing. So,
well, you definitely are hustling as it relates to trying to pull all of these pieces together, because you're still an artist. You still have to maintain the locations, and then of course in this really cool location, you're beginning to build out what will become the administrative, if you will, point to that. Lots I want to cover. I want to talk more about your work and the uniqueness of the type of art that you put into place, and also want to focus on other artists, artists who are looking for a home and looking for the opportunity to be in this collaborative space, what it takes for them, what they can expect, and how they can jump on board with Radiant Hall and the additional locations. So that and so much more when we come back, so stay with us. Are you interested in learning more about podcasting and video podcasting and how you can build your brand, influence, and income through podcasting? I'd be happy to help. In fact, you can schedule a complimentary discovery session with me. Really simple. Just go to podcastingandyou.com. Leave me your name and your email. You might want to check out one of my upcoming trainings as well, or simply send me an email at info@dariethchisholm.com, and we'll get some time scheduled to discover how podcasting can help you grow your business and your brand.
Hey, it's Tam Michelle with Tie the Knot Tuesday here at the Pittsburgh Marriott City Center, where we take care of all of your event and meeting needs brilliantly. So today we're going to talk about adding lighting to your event. Most of the time you walk into your ballroom and it's simply candlelit, but why not add a personal touch? Add the extra lighting, whether it's a pop of blue, it's a pop of purple, or even pink. You can find a way to add color to your wedding day or your event. So while you handle the I-dos, we handle the to-dos. For your wedding and event needs, like us on Facebook at the Pittsburgh Marriott City Center and call us at 412-918-1373 and ask for me, Tam Michelle. Keep smiling.
This is not a hotel. It's an idea that travel should be brilliant. Because it's not only about where you're staying, it's about where you're going. The promise of spaces far beyond your imagination. We're here to advance the art of hosting so you can make the most of your journey. Pittsburgh Marriott City Center. Travel brilliantly.
Are you looking for a way to advertise your business, product, or service? Why not do it here on Hustle and Heart TV? We'd be happy to send you our media kit for show sponsorship and advertising. Reach out to us at info@dariethchisholm.com or give us a call at 412-692-1600 and we'll send you a media kit with all the information.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Saunders, Executive Director of Strong Women, Strong Girls, and you're watching Hustle and Heart TV.
Ryan, you specialize in a type of art called sculptural painting, which really is this beautiful collection of raw materials and creativity, right? Yeah. So how are you inspired by some of the pieces that you put together, and then tell us about the fabrication or the collaboration of each of those mediums?
So the basic process for how the work that I create comes together is that I'll have a lot of objects and things that I either really relate to or things that I actually have almost no connection to. And I'll have those things laying around the studio and I'll use them, I'll pick them up, and I'll use industrial adhesives, different types of mechanisms to essentially attach those to a flat surface. But those objects end up being spread out throughout the surface of the panel, and those objects are essentially creating some kind of compression or energy between them, and then the overall effect or coating that gets put onto those is meant to kind of take away any kind of associations that you might have with those objects, and it puts everything on a level playing field. So instead of seeing trophies or any other kinds of materials that you might associate with on a day-to-day, those materials are coated in a certain application. It could either be a high gloss black paint. I also work with a lot of metallics. But when you do that, you basically remove the associations that you have with an object, and you're able to kind of start off fresh, where then you're able to look at the objects more for their mass and characteristics, mostly having to do with their physical presence, but the way that things are placed on a surface or deliberately brought together, it creates an opportunity to really understand those objects in a new way.
Yeah, it's because as I look at some of your art, and certainly I see the metallics in place, but because there's not a lot of color given there, you really do get to focus on the structure that's in place. And then because it's, when you look at it, you're thinking, well, what is this? But then you've got to sit with it for a while so it becomes what it is that you want to experience. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if that was a good depiction of how I should experience your art, but at least that's the way that I've seen it, and it's very beautiful, it's very interesting, it's very drawing from that standpoint. As artist, and as an artist who is now creating something in a city, when we look at what Radiant Hall is becoming, and then your work with Radiant Hall Collective Works, do you see that it is morphing, if you will, in that same process?
Well, I think there's a lot more connection between the way that I create artwork and kind of what I'm doing in a professional role. But you basically, the key to, I think, a lot of, I don't know if it's success or just wanting to make things happen, but there's a lot to be said for just trying to bring things together and see where the pieces fall. But it takes a lot of work, and you have to understand a lot of different ideas and concepts behind how these pieces really ultimately come together. And so whether it's a piece of artwork that I'm working on and trying to pull these pieces together, or if we're working on a new studio location, there are a lot of similar attributes or things that you have to think about in terms of how do those pieces come together, how do they bounce off of one another, how do they come together to create something that's more than just ordinary objects that you're comfortable with on a day-to-day.
Yeah, I mean, and really the question that I asked in the conversation that we're having does lead into the fact that, you know, when you're starting something brand new and you don't necessarily have a model to follow, but you know that you want to do it, you're working hard to achieve it, you're looking at so many opportunities where you can leverage other people's talents, collaborate with others, dream big and work hard. It's whether you're thinking about opening up a dime store, or in this case creating something you know, with a mindset of I want to see this through, especially when it's organic. We talked a little bit earlier about just working on the fly. You know, the 2.5 years that you've been doing this, you've been dreaming about it. I'm sure you've faced many challenges along the way. What keeps you driven and focused in this very organic, fluid situation?
Well, that also relates back to why I decided to be an artist a long time ago. Was essentially creating a painting, you're never going to be right. It's always something that you're driven to do, but there's no real answer to what that's going to be. But the beautiful thing is that you can always start a new one. And so the way that I kind of look at Radiant Hall and how I kind of maintain a certain energy level to keep up with its development is basically just understanding that we can plan, we can scheme, we can come up with this ideal mechanism to help artists. Is it ever going to be perfect? It won't be. But you have to learn to take things one day at a time and just kind of give it your best effort, and hopefully in the end all of your efforts will come together to be something larger than you ever thought it could actually turn out. That
concept of done is better than perfect, and that perfection just really doesn't exist. Yeah.
So I guess the way that it really connects with the painting, though, is that I can basically, the nice thing about the artwork is that I can leave the painting and walk away from it.
Can't necessarily
the organization
do that
is a little bit harder. So you do have to be careful of not building something too big or something that is unmanageable. And I think that's definitely a place where Radiant Hall is at right now, where we're expanding and we're trying to kind of grow and develop these systems for artists. And it's definitely a bigger job than just starting a smaller studio building. How do you grow? How do you build capacity?
Is it growing too fast for you?
I'm keeping up. My girlfriend might say differently, but
the cats and dogs might believe differently too, right?
Yeah. They're the thing that's really the difficult part, is just keeping up with them. But no, but the art and the locations and building these mechanisms are definitely, it's rewarding, and that's the ultimate reason why I'm doing it. It was never to create a job for myself. It kind of evolved into one.
But the need is there, and this expansion is happening, 6 locations, right, you're looking at, and so it's hard enough to get one moving and going, but you've done that, and now you can multiply out. You've learned along the way. What would be some things that you would advocate to someone who is just on a particular track, not necessarily with what you're doing, but in business in general, someone who is finding that, wow, this is happening fast, and I'm moving maybe at a faster pace than I planned, but that opportunity exists now, and you've got to get into action and make it happen. What would you advise them?
I would find people that are going to be on your team. They're going to be on your side, and they're willing to work for the same things that you want to work for. The only way that Radiant Hall is going to expand is if we start to place trust in other individuals to kind of carry that mission, to want to help artists. And so for me, it's been really important to surround myself with a lot of different mentors from basically local community neighborhood organizations. They're executive directors. We have a bunch on our board. They've been really important from a community standpoint. You have to make connections within these communities. You have to understand the dynamics, and putting in a studio building just anywhere, it's a little bit more complicated than what somebody might think. But
having team and support, really important, especially during fast growth periods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And making sure that you're keeping up with certain things within the business that might not be as attractive. So making sure that the books are in line, and that you're making all the right steps so that when you get to a certain growth point, you're prepared to make that next step, which is a lot harder to actually put into practice than to just talk about. So
yeah, definitely. Well, the artists, I'm sure, enjoy being in the spaces at Radiant Hall and those up and coming spaces. So we'll talk a little bit more about how, as an artist, if you're looking for a collaborative space to work in, what it would take for you to be a part of Radiant Hall, and how to contact Ryan and all the other fun stuff that you guys have going on. So what steps have you taken lately to take your business to a whole nother level? Or are you stuck or stalled? I'd love to hear from you. So send me an email at info@dariethchisholm.com, or you can like me on Facebook at Darieth Chisholm, or on Twitter at Darieth Chisholm, and share your journey. Ask me a question, give me a topic or two, or a potential show guest. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Maybe your manuscript has been rejected for the 10th time. Maybe you're already published, but sales are almost non-existent. The defeated feeling is the same. It's time to get it done right. Rochelle Carter, the author of The 7-Step Guide to Entrepreneurship, has the answers that will turn your career around. Rochelle leads you through the powerful 7 steps, guiding you as you become a successful author and entrepreneur. Build your writing talents into a business, a platform that can sell you and everything you write, giving you what every writer wants, a continuing money flow. Rochelle Carter shares the tried and true, as well as the new, most effective, smart, and affordable steps to plan your publication and sell more books. To be a successful professional writer, The 7-Step Guide to Entrepreneurship is a must-read, a guide you will return to time and time again.
Trouble can find anyone. At Frank Walker Law, we take the time to understand your situation and work tirelessly on your behalf. Hard-hitting representation when you need it the most. A real law firm getting real results.
Hello, I'm Dion Malish. I'm a real estate agent with Northwood Realty Services. I'm a house-selling, record-breaking, graphic designing, multi-talented real estate agent, and I'll see you on the next episode of Hustle and Heart TV with Darieth Chisholm.
Ryan, we've been promising to talk about artists involved in Radiant Hall and what it takes for someone to come into the space and assume some square footage. So how is that involved?
So basically, as the executive director, I'm managing a lot of the other kind of oversight of the organization, but in our Lawrenceville location, we have somebody called the studio director, and they're basically responsible for making sure that the spaces in that building are filled and that everybody is creating a healthy environment for each other to work in. And so Seth Clark, he's the studio director in Lawrenceville. If you are an artist and you log onto our website and you are interested in studio space, you essentially send us an email and we set up a time to meet with you. And at that point, it's either myself or Seth, but we basically just take the artist through the studio, explain to them why we are here, what we're doing, why we do it, and then kind of introduce them to some of the other artists that are in this space. And normally from having that conversation, we're able to determine, and normally the artist determines for themselves whether or not they want to be in that kind of environment. And so the application process is a first come, first serve. So if we have an opening, we'll go down our waiting list, and the next one on the list we'll invite in, we'll have that conversation, and hopefully they'll want to move into the studio. But our whole process is basically developed within that conversation.
How many artists do you have housed now?
So we have 20 artists in our current location in Lawrenceville. We have 5 more moving in over the next 2 weeks. Ultimately, we'll have 27 spots within the Radiant Hall in Lawrenceville.
And what are the costs associated with it, and can they determine their own workspace and square footage and needs?
Yeah, so we start out with a basic unit that is our starting membership amount. Essentially, each artist gets 250 square feet for $250 per month. And that's just basically broken down in terms of, well, $200 is allocated to 250 square feet, and then there's a $50 utility fee that pays for electricity, refuge removal, and those kinds of extra expenses that the building would take on. And so we've worked that all into a membership where the artist knows exactly what they're paying for, which breaks down to space and utilities. And then we do all of these other things on top of taking care of the space that brings in other connections, collectors. We do public events throughout the year. But ultimately, the artists know exactly what they're paying for. And so anytime that we have an event or a special opportunity that we open up to the artist to apply for, they don't feel as if they're like they should have that opportunity. We've kind of separated things out so that they know what they're paying for, and then we're able to kind of react and work as an organization to provide other things on top of that.
That's great, because in that space, if you have showcases or what have you, there's also, if you will, is a marketing into it, which is great, and then you've got the space, which is very reasonable. They can go month to month. Sounds like you've got a waiting list, so therefore we've got to move into Homewood. And so how is that coming?
Yeah, so the Homewood Building is actually a larger project. The whole building is 100,000 square feet. We're only taking up about 5,000 of it. But we'll have 17 studios. They're run in the same way that we've broken up the studios in Lawrenceville, where they're pretty much communal studios. So you'll have partition walls that break down the different spaces, and artists can choose to either take up the 200 square feet or they can move larger or smaller. There are some changes in the price when you do that, but ultimately the spaces are designed to accommodate the artists and what they're working on that month. So.
And the other locations?
So the other locations we don't have any confirmed projects as of now. We're working on a lot of different fronts and with a lot of different collaborators, but we would hope to have locations in the Hill District, the North Side, McKees Rocks, and then there are some other places throughout Pittsburgh that we're kind of keeping our eye on. But ultimately, the idea is to create multiple locations that aren't just isolated to or restricted to one location in the Pittsburgh region.
When you think about what you've done over the last 2 years to really bring the art community together in this collaborative effort, you see yourself as you know, a forerunner, if you will, or someone who's just, as I said, a champion for artists?
Well, I'm reminded every day when I look at my schedule and see all the different things that I have going on. It's really not, it's not something that I like to get caught up in a whole lot. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done, and I think any time that you kind of stop and you take all of that in, it can be overwhelming. So I try to keep on a pace that just allows me to take things one day at a time, and I try not to say no to too many opportunities, but when you try to have a home life and you have animals and a lot of other things that play into living, it gets hard to keep up with a lot of those things.
How do you balance your lifestyle? I mean, on this show, we certainly talk about leadership, leveraging lifestyle, and loving your journey. And those two things are so very important to making leadership and leveraging work. So how is lifestyle and loving your journey?
Well, I think we all know what we're good at. I think it has the real struggles that I think most leaders have are identifying what we're not good at and how do we come up with solutions for those things. Recently, I actually had my girlfriend, we live together, we have 4 animals. She stepped up and started to act more as an executive assistant to me, just to help with emails and a lot of other day-to-day business. But you really have to just find your support systems and really understand who's going to be there to help you. And so that's probably one of the keys, is just being able to find people that support what you're doing as much as you enjoy doing it. So
Where do you see this in 5, 10, 15 years?
well, hopefully, the 5-year plan is to actually have a good idea of where those 5 to 6 locations are going to be. We have a 3-year plan of having 150 studios throughout the Pittsburgh area, and we're on track to meet those numbers.
And that being, when we say 150, it could be 17 in one location, 60 in another, but a total of 150.
Correct. And in comparison to New York, there was a recent commitment to build 150 studios of rent-controlled space within New York once a year for 10 years. And that's not even going to come close to really meeting the need that's seen in places like New York. So even to say that there's going to be 150 studios in Pittsburgh, it's still a relatively low number.
Compared to the number of artists who could probably use this. I want to wrap this back around, and we started earlier talking about the challenges that you faced as a young graduating art student in New York, and really how you felt like the wind was knocked out of you and you just kind of lost your space and your balance, yet you turned it into this. What was the key to making that happen for you?
What's the key to making that happen? It's really hard to narrow it down to just one thing. I think one of the biggest things that kind of helped me along the way was just having a strong enough support system from the very beginning. I've had a very supportive family throughout all of this. But knowing that you have something to fall back on allows you to do a lot more than if you didn't have that kind of support. Because anytime that you're trying to do something new, it's scary, and you can't always be sure that it's the best decision for you to make at that time.
But it sounds like you had a strong why. There was something that was driving you, and a strong why in that.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, it had a lot to do with how I wanted my life to be, and what I would have to do to actually earn or achieve that structure, which ultimately is just, how do I make work and be happy with what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, which it requires a lot more thinking than most people think that it takes. But you really have to understand the long-term decisions that you're making now and how they will affect your ability to create a lifestyle that's convenient and supportive of what you want to do. And that's really what requires a lot of the work, is setting up those systems that will ultimately support you.
Yeah. So Ryan, we always ask our guests as part of a close to give us 2 tips, a hustle tip and a heart tip. And so for people who are watching, who are clearly inspired by your story and your journey, who might be thinking about doing something along these lines, or just need that encouragement for themselves in whatever business they're in, share with us what your hustle tip would be for them and your heart tip.
So the hustle tip was probably related to, you don't have to solve all the world's problems in one day. The reason why I'm here now is because I decided to move into a space that was a little bit larger than what I thought I could take on with a friend of mine, and we started there. That was essentially the beginning of Radiant Hall, but I think it's important to be able to make a little bit bigger step than you left behind, and just take things kind of one day at a time. And eventually those days all add up, and you're able to get to a place where you'll look behind you and say, well, I never imagined that I would actually be standing here knowing all the things that I've been able to accomplish. So I would just say if you want to do anything, do it small and then scale that idea if it's important to scale.
And your heart tip?
Never give up on something that you really want to do. Regardless of how hard it is, how scary it is, it's always worth it in the end. And for me, it's allowed me to be completely comfortable with my life decisions. I wake up every morning knowing that what I've put into it is exactly what I want it to be. And so if you were to ask me if I've had any regrets, I would probably tell you no. And that's just because I've stayed true to everything that I've wanted to do. It was never an easy thing to do, but in the end, it's worth it. So,
are you looking for a career that pays great money, working with a fun group of people? I know, sounds too good to be true, right? Hi, I'm Troy Miles of the Miles Group.
We will train you, help you get your license, even supply leads. No cold calling.
I've been here 2 years and earned 6 figures this year.
I love my job.
I love the freedom and being my own boss.
If you would like to work among friends, have a great time, and make good money, call us.
Find out more at tmilesgroup.com.
Hi, I'm John Perneris of the John Perneris Agency in Ambridge, Pennsylvania. One of my biggest pet peeves is when the IRS rips you off. We've been in business since 1950, and for 65 years, we have been committed into saving you money on your taxes. We keep the IRS off your back and out of your pocket. You can visit us on our website at johnpernerisagency.com. Find us on Facebook at Facebook John Perneris Agency for money-saving tips, and you can call us at 724-266-4100 to book an appointment now.